in Palo Alto at the Royse Law Firm, and we've got a handful of folks here. We'll just introduce ourselves, maybe at least the people that are live here before we get started. But today, this is our first workshop, the first of many that we're going to do, and we're really lucky to have Sara Rauchwerger here to talk to us about pitching to win. And I'm going to let Sara introduce herself and tell you a little bit about what she does and about her presentation. You should be able to see this on your computer screen if you're on the GoToWebinar, and I can see, actually I can see here who is signed up, so I know that not all of you have arrived yet, but most of you have. And if you have questions as we go along, just go ahead and type those into that dialog box in the upper right-hand corner, and you know, we'll answer them either in real time or at the end of the presentation. And I'm sure Sara will be around if you want to email her afterwards with things. But here in the conference room, this is Roger Royse. I'm here. Henry from our office is here. He's our technical guru. Sara, of course, is here. We've got some attendees.
Jim Angelopoulos is here.
Yeah, from Spriegel.
From Spriegel. Right.
Yeah, Brian Dixon from Spriegel as well.
And Bill Moffett from Airstone.
Okay. Sara, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our session today. I'm very happy to join Roger here and working and helping these companies accelerate their businesses. Today what I'd like to talk about is pitching to win, but before I do that, I want to share a little bit about myself, who I am and what I do. I've been working with startups for more than 10 years. My main focus has been to help young companies actually accelerate their business and move their markets overseas. I've been working with China quite a bit. One of the biggest elements that I've been doing with these companies is actually helping them seek investments, because part of growing your business is you always need financing and funding to get you to the next step. I've also kind of worked around with a lot of the investors in Silicon Valley and abroad. So I probably know 95% of the investors in Silicon Valley, because part of what I do is I source deals for them. We're always looking for good companies to work with and watch them grow and help them meet customers, meet partners, and actually get the investments. I run an organization in Silicon Valley as well, which allows companies to get connected, and not only connected to investors, but also connected globally. Another piece of the puzzle is I do run almost an accelerator program, or what I would call kind of a platform to also help companies accelerate their businesses to the cloud. We work with a very large data center that's located in Santa Clara in California, and we are one of 7 data centers throughout the United States. So because of some of the changes today in the industry, a lot of companies are accelerating their businesses, and in order to do that, they need to move a lot of their products to the cloud. So we also help with that part of it. So it's a wealth of experience in many different aspects of building companies, from financing, from everything, to get you to the next step. What I'd like to focus on today is naturally it's what a lot of the companies, when they are working in Silicon Valley especially, come out here to look for funding. To get funding today is actually not that difficult, because Silicon Valley is very wealthy. I say it's not that difficult, but it's a matter of being able to convince investors and customers and potential partners to recognize who you are to get that investment. And when I say investments, I'm not only talking about the VC world. There's so many different opportunities how to get funding, and I will get to that towards the end. But what I want to focus on is really, what does it take to actually build a platform to get you to that level? If we're going to go to the next slide, I'm going to talk about 10 different items, which are you should be able to see on the slides, and these are very, very important, because these are the items that are going to explain what you do as part of your business. And this is what you take to your investor, your customer, your partner. When you look at these items, the only piece in here that you don't need for the investor is item number 10, the status and the funding. And I will go through each one of them because everything that you build on here is really a summary of your business. And what does it take to do this? Well, the first thing is whoever you're talking to, it's really about convincing them to give you something. That's why you're going to them. But when you look at their side, what are they looking for? What are they looking to do? So you always have to put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, I'm coming to you with something, but that means you want something back. When I'm looking at the investment community, if you're going in and say, I need $1 million, you can imagine that an investor, a VC, would say, okay, well, in exchange, I hope that your plan will show me how you're going to get me 10 back, and in the shortest amount of time. Especially in Silicon Valley, they tend to be a little bit impatient because there's so many success stories here, so they're going to choose the ones that will accelerate the quickest. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go to a VC. But either way, you're still trying to convince them to give you something, and in return, they want something back. Everybody's looking to make a profit, including you. So it's a matter of when and how much. And in different industries, it takes a different amount of time. For your industry, I will admit I'm not that familiar with the ag environment, but I am familiar with technology. What some of the limitations would be is maybe some of the requirements by state governments. And if you're in that situation, then talking to a VC is probably going to be a little bit more challenging because you need to educate them about that topic. So there's roundabout ways and there's mechanism to reach there, but it's all about, your presentation and how you reach them. You really need to focus on, whenever you're presenting your material, you want to make sure that you're able to answer every question. As we're going to go through each of these items that are listed there, I want you to be able to think of your presentation in a way that whatever you say, it wouldn't pose any problems on you in a way where if I ask you a question about a specific topic that you introduced, you're quickly able to answer that question. Because what your main objective is really to get to that person and really get them excited about what you're doing. We kind of have a little short acronym for that called AIDA, A-I-D-A. Basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to arouse them. You want to get an interest for them. You want to get some sort of desire, and the end result is action out of them to either write you the check, get you connected to somebody who might be able to help you, or anything else that you're there to get out of them. One of the other things that would be good to do as you come into this is, we call this a mantra. Have you heard of a mantra? And one of the things about doing a webinar, it's very hard to, so if any of you guys out there do have any questions about some of the wording that I'm using, please type that in, and then we could always try and respond, because I have a live audience here and I can see reaction versus I can't see reaction at the other end. So please do not hesitate to type. There's plenty of us here that can stop me and give you an answer. So a mantra, let me give you an example of a company that you probably recognize. Just do it. Do you know who that is?
Nike.
Nike. So it's something about coming in and actually introducing yourself in a way where they'll remember who you are. And this is part of where we're going to go into the first slide. What is a grab? As we're building this, so what we're looking to do when we're going to pitch to an investor, pitch to a customer, today it's very common practice to come in with a presentation. Come in with a deck of slides. And you can use PowerPoint, you can use any platform that you want. But a deck of slides is kind of what's expected today. It used to be that we'd come and put brochures and we'd put all this marketing documentation. We're done with that. Actually, Silicon Valley is very much into the paperless environment. They just want to see a quick presentation. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you want. Let's talk. So in order to do that, you really got to grab their attention, and grab their attention quickly. So how do we do this? What you're trying to do is you're basically telling them a story. And by telling them a story is you're tying all these items, line 1 through 10, together. All of those, the grab, the problem, the solution, is really interlinked. It should not be separated. For example, the problem. You know, why did you create this company? What was the purpose of it? That actually ties into financials. When you look at the whole situation, when you're looking at this, it ties into your financial slide. When you're looking at the business model, it ties into your financial. So it's a story. You know, it's about how you make money. It's about how you enter this market. You know, have you created any barriers for other competitors to enter the market? So all of these line items, 1 through 10, are interlinked. So it's telling a story. On the right-hand side, I have another box that says value proposition. The definition of a value proposition is basically a statement that convinces a reader, your audience, or anybody to really provide an offering that will add value. So within point 1 through 10, every slide should be able to have some sort of offering. And what does that mean? I have 5 items on it. What, why, where, when, and how. What does that mean? Every single slide, you should be able to ask yourself a question. Have I answered the what? Have I answered the why am I offering this? Where is it going to happen, when, and how? If you could answer all 5 of those to every slide, you've been able to convince someone that you're on the right direction. Because you're not leaving them with an empty spot where you say, okay, well, why are they doing this again? I didn't quite understand what they're doing. So line item 1 through 10, every slide should have some sort of value proposition. You always have to ask yourself, when you're putting these slides together, so what? I put this slide together. Has it really answered the so what? You know, has it answered all these questions to convince someone to say, okay, I really am interested in you. Excuse me, my phone. It's my phone, not the...
By the way, look, if some of you are having trouble hearing, I got an email that you might not be able to get in through the on the computer. You know, just call into the number because that's working fine. Okay, and if you are, send me a text message online in that Q&A box if you're having trouble with the audio. Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right. All right, so let's go through the first one, which is called the grab. The grab is really the first impression of you. When you come in to any environment, no matter what you do, people are going to judge you instantaneously. It's either by the way you dress, by anything, by your demeanor, by anything that you do, they're going to judge you. That is kind of your first test of creating that grab. So you should be very observant and see the reaction. You know, if it's down to setting up your computer to make sure that it's plugged correctly, that, you know, it's about getting practice and being able to show that you understand what you're doing. Down to, you know, even shaking hands and saying hello. It's your demeanor because that's going to count. But now you're a little bit vulnerable because you're there, you want something, right? So you're going to be on your best behavior, but you don't know, you know, at what level you're on your best behavior. So really it's about, you know, having a clear message of who you are and what exactly you do. So that first slide is always about, you know, your company. Get down to the point. Don't waste time. Don't go around the circle. You know, put something out there that tells you my company name. You know, instantaneously tell them who you are and what the company does. Very quick, to the point, and watch the reaction. If you've lost them on the first round, you've already have a problem. You need to gain that momentum. What does it take? So observation is very important. I do have a downside for you because today, if you decide to approach the venture capital community, every one of them asks you for the slides first. They want to see them first before they actually set up a meeting. So you have a challenge. You've got to create that grab on the slides as well as when you meet them in person. So I would highly recommend anyone that's doing this, that's approaching the VC environment, really love your network, to have them review your presentation, talk to consultants, talk to people who've done this, who've seen presentations. I'll tell you, I see 3,000 presentations a year because I source deals to investors. Can you imagine how many presentations a venture capital sees? At the minimum, 10,000. Where do you stand in that? Do you remember in the old days when we used to send to him, for those of you, I don't know the age group of the audience online, but in old days we used to write papers and we'd submit these papers to the professor and we put them on the desk. How do you differentiate yourself there? The trick was you take your paper, who is maybe 10 pages, you stick it in a binder, a very thick binder, and you make sure that the rest of the presentation, the rest of the paper would fall off. That's how you get the attention, because the teacher would then want to look at that one first, because they'd have to go pick up the rest. So you're kind of in that same situation. You want to make sure that when they see your presentation, they're instantly gained an interest. But it's also about understanding your audience. You could be as compelling as you want, but you could send a presentation to someone who has no clue about your industry, has no understanding of what you do, but all you know is that they're loaded with money and that's why you should go to them. That's the wrong way to do things. You really have to understand that VCs do cover a wide range of industries. They're not experts in all the industries. A lot of times you're educating them. So not only do you have to get their attention, you also have to educate them. It's better that you find out who they are and find out how much you need to educate them. Learn about some of their investment history. That's very important. A lot of people go in there in the blind and just give presentations, don't understand why they haven't received a response. That is not good. Leverage on your network. And again, everything that you do, try and attract and be compelling as you can. So back to the slide of the grab. It should be, very minimal, a one line item or 2 or 3 sentences that really talk about who you are. The next aspect of it, anything that you write on paper, you should have a proof and a validation. Because let's assume you're so good at getting their attention, they're so excited about you, but when it comes to the due diligence process, and if you're familiar with the whole investment process, is investors may decide that this is very exciting and they may want to invest, but they don't write checks like many years ago they used to, especially after the dot-com crash. They don't do that anymore. They go through what's called a due diligence process, and that process is an opportunity to get to know the company, to understand what they're doing. So anything that you speak, anything that you write, anything that you do has to have a proof and a validation. So be careful what you write, especially when we get to item number 6, the marketing and sales, when we start looking at statistics and where you got all your information. Make sure you validate all of that. All right, the next item is, all right, we've got their attention a little bit. Now they're curious to know what your company does. Tell them what is the problem that you're trying to solve. The whole idea of doing this business is because you saw a problem. You saw something that needed a solution as quickly as possible. There isn't anything on the market, or there are other companies on the market, but they're not doing it just right. They're looking for other opportunities. So in this slide, you're really talking about why was it really necessary to create your product or service? And then what is the value proposition again in doing that? Why is it important? What was the reason that your product is better than maybe others? And when I say others, we're talking about competitors. And those are key determinants of kind of an industry. So you should really focus on, looking at what's out there. If you're a company that comes in and tells me, I'm the only one out there, I have no competitors, no investor is going to believe you. because there's always someone out there, somewhere, may not be in the United States, maybe somewhere else around the world that probably has the same idea, but their implementation may be slightly different than you. Their market share may be very small, or they're just getting started. But if you don't show me that there's somebody else out there, you know, it's a bit of a problem. Because it just, I mean, there are brand new and great solutions out there, but those are far and few. And if you're one of them, good for you. You know, good for you. I think investors will really jump on that. And the other part of the problem is you also want to show that, great, you're solving this problem, but there's actually customers out there that want it. You're not doing it because you think it's a problem. You're doing it because you think, you know that somebody wants this. You've talked to people. You've been out there on the field actually evaluating what is going on to say, the reason I'm doing this is because when I'm done building this, I'm going to have instant customers. In this slide, if you can show that, you've already got their attention. And number two, you're already in slide 2, you're already telling the investor or anybody else that you're convincing, I've got customers. I'm not building this out of thin air. Slide number 3 is now talking about the solution. So we've got the problem. What exactly are you doing? So how are you solving this problem for your customers? What is the solution? These can be displayed in, depending what it is, if it's a technology play, you can show charts, you could do anything on it. But what's the key thing that you're trying to really show here is a differentiator, again, against your competitor. Remember how I talked about slide 1 through 10, they're all interlinked? And as you're building these slides, you're creating a connection to every other slide. So in the solution, it should have some sort of link that later on, when you go to slide number 7, the competitive advantage, you're linking back. Remember I told you about how I'm solving the problem? Remember I told you how the industry is looking at solving the problem? Here are the people that are differentiating, you know, the way they're solving the problem. That's how you link the solution. And that gets someone's interest again because they're waiting for that story. They're waiting to hear the rest. As part of the solution, you also want to show a benefit to the customer, a benefit to anybody that you're serving. And again, who will use it? We talked about the customers, that there are customers there when we talked about in the problem solution that there are customers out there. But what we want to know now is a little bit more specific of how they will use it, these customers. Be very specific on slide number 3 because that's the backbone of your business. Slide number 4 is the business model. Any business that you build, I want to know how you make money. If you can't tell me how you make money, you shouldn't be in this business, period. You're just doing it for the fun of it. Investors are going to want to see this, and they're really going to want to understand this because you can play and build, and you can put a lot of different units and pieces on this, but without showing me how you make money, it's not worth the effort. But making money is also about the different ways of doing this because you may have, you know, if it's a technology play, maybe it's a licensing piece. But you know, licensing sometimes doesn't allow you to scale a business. So again, depending on who your audience and who you're talking to, I'm now focusing on the venture capital where they're looking for 10x. You're going to come out and tell me that you're doing a licensing play. The licensing play is going to take a long time. It takes time to ramp up. So are you talking to the right person? Is that the right approach to get funding from? Because licensing, but if there may be other mechanisms of gaining revenue through different means that can show scalability and fast pace, then you're gaining, again, you're on slide 4, you're keeping that investor's attention. If you're looking, you know, for funding from folks like angel investors, you don't need to worry about the licensing play where you can't scale quickly, because angel investors tend to be a little bit more lenient, a little bit more flexible. They want to grow with you. They want to see those opportunities. So again, today I'm focusing a little bit on the big player, the VC, but again, there's so many mechanisms how you can get funding. Again, on the business model, you're really trying to put the value proposition again. I mean, it's very important. You better be able to say not only how you make money, when will you make the money, because if you're still building the technology and it will take another 2 or 3 years to build technology, you've already told me that you won't make money for another 2 or 3 years. If you're going for VC funding, they have no patience. It depends on what you're presenting. Where are you going to make money? Is this a local play in a local community? Or is this a nationwide play? Or is this a global play? What is your strategy? And that's very important. And why are you using these mechanisms to make money? What's the benefit of these alternatives? And again, what is it, which is, how are we doing that? Slide number 5 is technology. It may not apply to everyone. It depends on what kind of business you have. The technology piece of it is if you're building a company that has a very deep technology play on it, then sometimes we look for, okay, so what have you done to create what we call a barrier to entry? What is unique about your technology? Do you need to have IPs? And if so, do you have any IPs? And IP is intellectual property. Have you filed any of them? Where do you stand on that? What is that technology play relative to anyone else that's building on it? Is it something that's new? Is it something that's built on top of something else? Is it something that's off the shelf? Explain it to me. If it's a technology play, I also want to know, is it for the customer? Is it easy to use? I mean, are we talking about performance? Is it convenient? What is it exactly? So this chart may not apply to all of you. It really depends. If you're in the service industry, you don't need a technology slide. You may need a slide that talks about how you offer your service. And again, when you do that, you're still differentiating yourself. What is unique to the market? How are you doing that? This slide is really about creating a barrier to your competitor. This slide comes and ties into slide number 7 again, because you're talking about creating an opportunity that limits your competitors from entering into your market share, because you're trying to gain market share. That's what you're trying to do. You're out there to sell. I don't know where, if it's local, if it's nationwide, again, if it's global. You're dealing with a huge amount of competition. What have you done to minimize others from playing on your territory? It's a little bit like playing chess. You have to strategically understand what you want to do and how you're going to play that game to be able to win the market. Slide number 6 is actually very, very important. Before I continue, are there any questions up until now?
Not substantive.
Okay. That's good. It's clear. It's easy to understand. Okay, that's good. So slide number 6, the marketing and sales. We've gone through all this process explaining why we've done things. We showed them a solution. We show them how we make money. We've gone through everything. We got them so excited. They're really interested. But what we really like to know is, and who is buying and how many are there, who is in the market. Show me the proof. I will give you an example. Let's assume you're building an app, even if it's for agriculture, anything. It's an app. With the social media platform today, with everything that we have, there's probably on just the iPhone, the iOS system itself, over 1 million apps. How do you compete with that? That's number one. Once you get your app out there, Apple accepts it, you're on there, you're in. How do you promote it? Just in the social media platform, all of us, if we're using them, we have at least, I will say, on the good side, 400 friends. From a business side, maybe 400 people as well in our network. So we could, disseminate that information to 400 people easily. those 400 people, if they love you and they think you're great, will disseminate that information to maybe another 1,000 people. We are now at 1,400 people, maybe 1,400 companies or 1,400 customers, whatever you want to call it. We could probably, with a little bit of push, with a little bit of marketing, get up to 20,000. And we're talking about an app. So 20,000 users on it. When I come back to slide number 9, the financials, 20,000 users for an app, that's not a lot of users. For us, it's a lot of effort. It's a great effort because we've achieved, a momentum, and we're so proud. But between 20,000 and 100,000, some people can take that boundary and jump and do it, and they get really good at it. It really depends on the app. But getting from 20 to 100, no, from 100 now to 1 million, where there's such substantial revenue that can be gained, that's the biggest challenge. So when you're looking at the marketing and the sales, when you're looking at who your audience is, you really have to think of how am I going to reach out? What is my market share to actually gain that audience? What do I need to do? And again, I just use an app world. Anything else on other technology platforms, the same thing. If we're using wireless networks, anything on there, we have to know how many people are using it today. Is there anything that we need to adjust? Who's our target market? Whatever you do, when you get these statistics, there's 2 ways to reach those statistics. One way is what's called primary research, and another one is secondary research. The difference part of it is one of them is today with the internet, we can get so much information. We could go and find information that analysts put together all the time and get that. And those, it's very good information. Use that. But also do spot check. Also call. And I'm not talking calling random people. Call your customers. Call and find out, if I have that product available for you tomorrow, will you use it? It will add to your statistics. And that's how you come up with your marketing. And it also kind of gives you the strategy for your sales. So this slide is really, it's about, here's my numbers to show you where our global reach is. And here's proof validating that in these different pockets, we've talked to these customers, they're willing to buy our stuff. Just give it to us. Some of them are even saying, I wish I had this yesterday. Those are the type of things you'd like to put out. This slide also basically tells the investor who is your target audience. It's building the complete picture of who you're going after, which then ties into your business model because it explains how you make revenue. So do you understand now how all of this is interlinked? As you're collecting this information, there are 2 things that you need to look at. There are what's called a TAM and a SAM. And if you don't know what that is, a TAM is total available market and a SAM is served available market. The TAM is a number that shows, it tends to be huge because either it's a global number or a nation number. It's a huge number. The reality is you can't hit all of that. It will take you time, especially if you're a small business. It takes time to jump to that level. So you have to be realistic. You have to look at what we call the SAM, the served available market. And then now you have your competition because they're also playing on this market. So when you look at a pie, which is a circle, what we want you to do is out of the TAM, carve out the SAM, and out of the SAM, carve out your market share. And the way you do that is talking about your reach to your customers. So if you're playing on a nationwide, I'm going to Florida and I'm going to get customers in Florida, I'm going to get customers in Utah, I'm going to get customers in California, I'm going to reach a global, a nationwide players in these different industries. And you start coming up with numbers. And these numbers should end up in your financials because that's how you can figure out your revenue. It's based on what you're focusing on you'll now get your financials. So this is the proof. It's the interlink between the financials. And there's many different ways to show slide number 6. You could show charts, you could do anything you want as long as you get that information across. Number 7 is probably the most important slide out of all of these. If you've got their attention up until now, and please do pay attention to people as you speak. If you lose their interest, then you've lost the whole presentation. You have to figure out how to pick it up. When you get to competition and you still have the investor excited or your customer excited, you're doing great. Because competition, you're now talking about, all right, I've told you everything that I'm doing. Now let me tell you what my competitors are doing. Let me tell you why we're different. Let me tell you why our customers want us versus them. And you can show this again in different charts showing if it's a feature, if it's whatever that is related to your company of what you're doing. This chart will demonstrate your strengths and your weaknesses. You should have some weaknesses. You can't stand out there and say we're the best because, again, you're playing with an audience that's also competing in the market. And as soon as they discover that you're out there, your competitors, instantaneously you'll see that the feature that you are now offering, they offer as well. Do they offer it in a way where it's good? Probably not. But because they know that you're in the market, they're going to play that game because this is the game of chess, a strategy. I will tell you the other thing about investors and the internet and today, the environment that we deal with. When you send these slides in advance, the first thing that investors do is they'll type your company name. They'll either look for a website or they'll look for something about you. If they don't find anything, okay, you're a newbie, they're okay with that. The next thing they'll do is they'll type just a keyword about the topic, the subject. And you know what pops up? Your competitor. And they'll quickly start, without understanding anything of what they'll do, they'll quickly just look through and see what this is about. Now you come in and present, and you talk about all these features, and they've already read that. They've done their homework. We're assuming that people do their homework. Most of the time they do. If you get called in to pitch to a VC, they've done their homework. So they'll know exactly where you stand. So when you put this chart together, the competitive analysis chart, where you stand out, and you put a check mark, and your competitor does the same thing, but you put that they didn't, you're in trouble because they're going to question you on this. The other aspect of the competition, again, it's about the different features. Is it, more efficient? Is there price? Are we talking about price difference? Is it features? Is it settings? It's anything. And this one is something that, again, you have to look at internally at your business and see what you're doing relative to others. How do you get this information? Okay, the internet is a great source, but there's another way. Call them up. Call your competitors. Talk to them. You don't have to tell them who you are. I mean, if you look at some of the large companies today, most large companies have a competitive analysis department where all they do all day long, the people, is call their competitors. They find out what their strategy is. And it's a back and forth all the time. Nothing's stopping you from doing the same thing. You need to know what your competitors are doing. You need to understand what is the next step. You may not get all the information, but you can track it. You can figure out what they're doing because you understand that it's your industry. So be educated. Educate yourself on this. Look at patents. Look at all the information that are out there. Maybe they filed some patents on this topic, but you're just at the cusp of about to file it. Where do you stand on that? We're going to move to slide number 8, which would be the team. Remember this, and remember it forever, that technology does not build companies, people build companies. Everything that you've told me up until now sounds great. Can you implement? Can you initiate? Who's behind the scenes? This slide is probably today one of the most important slides. Although we bring it to the bottom, it's okay, because we don't want to introduce it at the beginning of who you are. We want the investors to really get excited about the idea first. And as you're speaking, whoever ends up being the speaker during these meetings, the investor will already get a sense of you, of who you are, because they're going to see how you speak. But now you're at a point where they've seen a little bit. Give them the whole picture of who you are and who you're working with. And why will you be successful? Why did you select the right team that can actually initiate that? What is their background? What is their credentials? What is their capabilities? Let's look at from a sales perspective. Do you have anyone on the team that actually has talked to any customers, has been out there, understands this industry, can go out and get you the customers? That is your key person. Operations, you know what? You could always change that person if they don't do well operating inside the company. But the salesperson, the business development person who's going to bring the business, is key to your success. Is that person a trustworthy person? Is that someone that has a network, can connect to people? And that's what's important. So what you're looking here as part of building a team, you could introduce it as a team structure. If you're a young company, it's very hard to put an organizational structure on it. Don't do that. You don't need to do that because you're a small company. If you're maybe a medium-sized company, yes, do that, because you want to show that you understand what it means to run a business. You understand how to put that. But if you're a small company, and maybe naturally you always have the CEO, and you always have probably the CTO, and you always have the COO. The CFO, nobody cares about at the beginning. The CMO, nobody cares about at the beginning either. So many C's, but the three are always there. They always differentiate that. But as I mentioned earlier, the key aspects of building a company is getting customers. Who is that person? Who is in charge? Is it missing? Is it somebody that you need to find? Make sure you put that on the slide. We understand that we have a hole. We understand that this is what we need. We're looking for that person. We are working diligently. We understand there's customers. We've talked to them. But we need someone out there who's going to be with them all the time to sell this. You can put that on the slide. It's about understanding what it means to run a business. It's about understanding what it means to build a team. It's about taking this to the next level and being able to implement everything that you just talked about. And again, I'm going to point to the value proposition on the right, the what, why, where, when, and how. How long have these people been with you? If you just formed this team 5 minutes before you walked into 5 minutes before you walked into that meeting, you're in trouble. And I say 5 minutes, but I've seen that before, where people walk in and they just hired a person 2 days ago because of their credentials, because they understood if we have these great credentials, PCs will love us because we got the right person, but they don't know them very well. And it's just been through the network, but it's not good enough. So make sure that it's people that you trust. It only takes one person to take a company down. And I will give you an example. I worked with a company, 3 founders. They were looking for funding. Great idea. Investor was about to write $1 million for this company to move them to the next level. They went through the due diligence process. I worked with one of the founders, only spoke briefly with the other founders, and this was my lesson learned because this was the first one we've kind of done together, working with the investors, because it brought this to them. As we're there, the other reason this happened is because one of the founders was overseas, so there was really no opportunity for me to travel all that distance to meet them. It was enough to do the calls and to kind of get to know. The check was almost in the bank. It was time for that due diligence. They walked, they talked to, naturally, the first person that we've been dealing with. Everything was perfect. They went to the second co-founder. Everything was perfect. They went to the third co-founder, who was so confident. They were in his office. He had his feet on the table, cross-legged, with a stout kind of very confident, go ahead, ask me anything you want. I'm so excited to work with you. we're looking forward to, great opportunities. The first question that came from the VC, and it was actually, they use analysts to go out and do some due diligence. They asked them, so what will you do with the money once we write your check? This particular co-founder said, well, the first thing I need to do is I need to recoup all of my investment into the company. And then after that,
No further questions.
so they were the person who was doing the due diligence was politically correct, continued with the question, lasted the whole hour, walked out of there. The minute they walked out of there, made that phone call and says, we are done. This is not a team. One of them is actually going to take this company down because we're basically paying him back. He has no faith in the company, saying we're paying him back. Check was, actually it wasn't a check, it was the term sheet that was basically read. So the importance of a team, the importance of the slide is huge. So,
And a little coaching, too.
yeah, and a little coaching on how to speak, to your, when it comes to that. The last part is the financials. Although I've been talking about linking all of this together to the financials, which is very important, the exercise of doing this is really about showing us that you understand what it means to build a business. I will tell you, every slide, like I said, I see about 3,000 business plans a year. Every pitch that I've seen, every slide on the financial always shows a curve from 0 to whatever, straight line up. Why not? It's beautiful. It's perfect. We're always in a perfect world here. Right? I'm not saying not to do that, but show me how you got these numbers. Explain to me what you speculate. It used to be that we wanted 5-year projections. Again, it depends on who you're going. If you're going for VC funding in Silicon Valley, nobody cares about 5 years from now because we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months from now. Things change so rapidly. So show about 18 months. Again, it depends on what you do. What we don't want to see here in these financials, we don't want to see numbers based on your population projections. Remember we talked about the SAM and TAM? We want to make sure that when you put these numbers, these are real-world capture rate markets, things that you've actually analyzed in there. And it's not that complicated to do this. But what this is about is really, it's finishing the story. It's showing the reality of how your business is going to be working. You can't anticipate things that will go wrong. Things will change. Normally, a curve for a business is never straight. It goes up. It might go a little bit down, but this is not something that we show on charts. The other aspect of this, what we want to see, if you're talking to VCs, remember I said, I want to see a 10x return. How are you going to show a 10x return? This, in 18 months. So, but the 10x return in 18 months talks about acquisition. So today, if you look around, especially in Silicon Valley, there haven't been that many IPOs, but there are a lot of acquisitions today. So that's 18x. So when you're looking at your financials, as a team, is this something that you're considering? Are you looking to build a company to get acquired? Is this something that you're doing? Because some people are doing this as a passion, that this is what they want to do. This is a career. We want to build a company. We want to do something that's exciting. We don't want to sell. If somebody comes up and wants to buy a company, okay, we'll consider it. But from a VC perspective, they want to understand what you're doing. They want to understand kind of where you are. Are you in this as a career? Are you in this, for the play? What are you in this for? And this chart will tell them, because it basically summarizes all those slides together. What you're doing is just explaining your assumptions on this financial slide. There's many ways to show financials. Again, you could show that curve, which is no one looks at it. Every investor, if you look at the investors, when they flip through, it takes me about less than a minute to flip through these 10 slides. because I could quickly capture. I know how to read these already. I've seen so many of them. And the financials, I don't even look at. I just quickly, because I already know what to expect, I already see. I just look at the numbers. And it's very easy to do calculations. If you went back to your business model and you showed me a little bit of your calculation, I could quickly in my head multiply and then come down to financial and say, wow, these numbers don't even match. What are they doing? So be careful. Do you see how everything links? It's a story. The last slide, and before I hit the last slide, up until now, what you've built, you could actually take and use for partners meetings, for customer acquisition, because you can show them the value of your company. So it's not that you're building this just for investment. You could build this for other opportunities in building your business. You've done all this work, why not? And these are valuable slides. So, but they're evolving slides. These are not something that you can leave and say, okay, we're done for good, because your business is changing. So you'll have to update these. But you know what? It's easier to update this than anything else because you know what you're doing. So it might be a little tweaking, and you can still go out there and do customer presentations, and we still don't need to do our brochures or anything else on there. You might want to consider, taking some of that material and even putting it on a, a website if you have one, like your solution. You can pull that from the website. One of the other things that I want you to be aware of, this is all going out and circulating in the public. So anything that you put on this slide should not share anything that's confidential, which makes this a bit tricky because this may land in your competitor's slide, in your competitor's hands, and they understand what you do. So be careful on what you put. Because this does go around, no matter what. And even on your website, you're going to have stuff. So people are going to keep an eye on you, just like you're keeping an eye on them. Now, slide number 10 is really for the investor. What is the purpose of slide number 10? When I say status and funding, now it's what do you want? So you're here. What do you want? You came here. You told me all this. What are you looking for? Remember the calculations and financials and all the things that you talked about? You're here because you're at a dilemma. You need to accelerate your business. You need to grow it. You need funding. You need money. How much money do you need? Every slide I see is always round numbers. I need $1 million. I need $2 million. I need $3 million. And it's always like that. You just round it up. This is what I need. Then you ask them, so what are you going to do with it? And you start adding the numbers. But wait a second. This is only $200,000. So what are you doing with the rest? So be careful what you write on here. If you are in for $1 million, I didn't ask you to put $997,000, but if you're in there for $1 million, it better be for $1 million. You know what you're going to spend it on, because the first question that they're going to ask you is, I'm going to give you that money. What are you doing with it? How is it really helping you scale your business? And when I say status, what have you put into this company? Have you put any money into it? What is the risk that we're taking relative to the risk that you've taken? Where are you today? That's what they want to know. Where are you today? What are you doing? What will you be doing in a couple of months? What is the runway for that amount of funding that I'm giving you? So I'm giving you $1 million. Is this taking you 18 months to scale the business and I'm going to get my return, so all I have to give you is $1 million? Wow, this is a great company. So really be careful on your ask, because they're going to want to understand what they get return and when. So if this is round A, are we anticipating to go through round B, C, and D? What is the growth of your company? This will tell them. This will definitely explain to them. When we're talking about funding as well, again, what I want you to be careful is, from an investor perspective, if I have $10 million, investors also like to take a risk. And what they'll do is they'll plant what we call many seeds. I have $10 million. I'm going to look for 10 companies and put $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. So I'll plant a bunch of seeds, hoping that one of them will pop. What you don't want to be is one of those that don't pop. So don't waste your time. Even though they're giving you $1 million, don't expect the world from them that they're going to do everything for you. Because they have, again, you got to put yourself in their shoes. They have portfolio companies that they need to manage. They're in different industries. What are you looking from them? It's not only the check. Can they really help you? Can they really do anything to get you to the next level? Is just writing the check good enough? It's not really. Because it's about a network, it's about working together, it's about a lot of different aspects of what it takes to build a business. So going out to VCs might not be a good reason to go there, because you might be just one of them who look interesting and they just want to drop that $1 million to also show their LPs that they've dropped that $1 million because they have too much of it. We're in Silicon Valley, there's too much money out there, so they're willing to take the risk. But it could actually take you down versus take you up. So really look at that whole environment. There's so many ways to get funding. So naturally one way is bootstrapping. You know, a lot of companies start that way and they do that and then you get stuck. We have one in the audience here who's already raised their hand. You know, it's a natural thing because we have a passion for it. Don't ignore banks. Ironically, banks today in Silicon Valley have become venture capitalists. They're playing that game, and they want to participate. So they're investing as well. But their term sheets are slightly different than the venture capital term sheet. You've got angel investors, strategic partners. One of the things that companies forget to do is we're building a business. We need partners. We work with large companies. Guess what? They have money too. They might have an interest in this. They might want to accelerate this because this will help them. Why not go to them for money? But everybody runs to a VC because they think it's the best place because, you know, they've done great marketing. Silicon Valley has done great marketing. We've got some great success stories. But what you don't hear is how many failures. There's plenty of them. Yes, among the successes. But we're still famous in Silicon Valley, and everybody runs here because those success stories create, like, you know, I'm just going to use Facebook for an example. 1/3 of the company are millionaires, so they have money to spend too. Do they know what they're investing in? No. First they buy their house, then they go buy their car. So that's why we have a lot of Teslas running around here, which is great. We love it. But then they, you know, they go travel the world. They come back. They still have money. They don't know what to do with it, and it's an addicting type of environment here. So they invest in companies. It could take you down instead. So be careful on where you go. Like I said, strategic alliance, you know, go to government if it's something that you're doing in that industry. I know it's a long process, but if you're in that industry, no VC will invest. If you need to leverage on government type of environment. So really look at the whole ecosystem of what it would take to help you raise the funding. So be aware of your strategy. Don't accept money from anyone. You know what? Even if I took a carrot with $1 million in front of you, it doesn't mean it's a good carrot to eat. So don't take it, because if you're serious about your business and you want this to do, you know, to do well, a partnership, it is a partnership. It's a little bit like a marriage. You're locked into this, and you're locked into it through this term sheet too. They control your company, and they may control it in a way that you don't want to have anything to do with it. So you just got yourself, it was all great, check came in the mail, but afterward, it all went down because guess what? They fired you as the CEO because they don't think you're qualified, but because they knew somebody else who could get in. How do you feel now? So this is the end of my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you have. I put my contact information online that you could see, and if you have any questions, I'm open to questions. Is there anybody out there? I can't see anything.
Aaron, you see any of yours? I don't see any mine. Okay, we've got one here. But,
can you talk about some examples?
well, there's a question here.
Oh. So one of the questions, can you talk about some examples, barrier to entry you've seen other than business use besides a patent? Yes, I could give you some examples. So when we talk about barrier to entry, it could also include how you do your sales. Everybody has a different process, how you reach your customers. It's really about a process. It doesn't necessarily mean a patent. A patent is really a technology play. But if you're in the service, it could be a piece of the service of how that, that helps your business. So it's really about, the different mechanism that you would use relative to your competition.
Yeah, a strong brand can be a barrier to entry.
Yeah, there we go.
A distribution, an exclusive distribution
Yep.
channel is very effective.
There we go.
Believe me, if you try to compete with John Deere, you'll find this out. Very effective
Yeah.
way of getting rid of competition.
Sarah, I got a question. So when you get into that pitch, I've seen this happen over and over. You've got your beautifully constructed, scripted 10 slides. You know exactly what you're going to say, and you get about 2 slides in. And then the VC starts asking questions and jumps you way ahead and gets you out of order. And I've always kind of wondered myself, because some people I notice, they just stick to the script. They just say, I'll get to that later. And other people will actually try to be responsive, even though it kind of mixes it up. I'm wondering, do you have a view as to what the right approach is?
The right approach is you've got to always pay attention. The reason they're asking that question is either you bored them, they've already, here's one more thing. When you're going to these types of institutions, I will tell you, out of the 3,000 business plans that I've seen, there's at least 2 or 3 that are always the same. Just different teams trying to build the same thing. So I've heard this. This will give you a signal that they've already heard this. They've already seen it. They may even, the reason they called you in is because they may be considering investing in one of those companies. So they want to hear what you're doing versus what they're doing. These are signals. So if they're jumping ahead, this is a signal to you to say, I understand. Either there's something in here behind the scene that they've seen before. So you have to know how, as part of being a CEO is being politically correct, or whoever's pitching is being, playing the politics of how you respond to this. It's about being observant. So, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's about how, if you stick to the script, my opinion is you don't understand your audience because you got lost in the middle. Mm-hmm. You haven't observed that they've already either seen this before.
How long, what's the right time frame that should someone be prepared to go to get called into that meeting?
They're very strict on this today. I mean, it's, it's like 15 to 20 minutes max.
That's it.
And then you have like a 10 minute Q&A. The meeting is normally for about an hour.
Yeah.
But if you look at, by the time you sit, by the time you shake hands, by the time you do all of these things, time goes by, and then you don't realize. So those 20 minutes are crucial because you're trying to engage them. They say 20 minutes is kind of the maximum that you would have an attention span for that. It's really about attention span, too, and engaging them. You could do this in 5 minutes. And if you got their attention and now you can start talking about the details, it's really about engaging them. It's really about talking to them. There's never, if you're going by the book, I will tell you right now, you're going into that meeting and then you're shaking your head and politely, it's very nice to talk to you. Let's keep in touch. When you hear that, you know you're done.
Yeah. I was at one about 3 weeks ago where the company sat down and pulled out their slides and said, okay, so we're going to go through our slides. Take about 90 minutes. And everybody
No.
No.
Every detail you can imagine about this business.
Well, I will tell you that it used to be that people used to write these huge business plans, especially when you went to the bank. They wanted these huge business plans with all text. Silicon Valley now has standards. If you notice everywhere you go now, 10 slides, no more. I don't want to see more than 10 slides. And just get to the point. I don't have the patience for you. I really want to know what you're doing now. That's it. But you're here. You're in the valley. Get out of the valley. It's very different.
That's right. That company happened to be from Fargo. So they did.
Yeah. Sarah, I've got a question. On the funding end, you mentioned a 10X as it relates to a VC. If we're focusing on the angels, can you give us a range of expectation in terms of multiple?
Okay, depends where the angels are from. If we're in Silicon Valley going after angels, ironically enough, those angels are becoming like the wannabe VCs, and they'll also have this big fluffy idea of I want 10x. But there are the angels that are not like that. So really, there's two kinds of angels. There's now groups in the Valley like Sandhill Angels, the Band of Angels. Those are almost behaving like VCs, even though they're still angels and they do seed rounding, but some of them are even going for Series A. Those will still want the 10x. But if you're going under private angels, what we call high net worth people, they're probably not in on this. They want to support you, they want to help you, they want to work with you. So their expectations are very limited. They're not that. It's individual now. So there is no 10x expectation. If you can show that, why not?
Right.
10x is, it's just a generic number that I'm using. It doesn't apply to every industry. Different industries will have different ranges. Again, it's dependent. There's no, like I said, there's no right path. Every path is going to be different because of what you're building.
I'm going to have to step out. Actually, you guys should stick around. One of our mentors is here, Bob Whitaker from Produce Marketing Association, so you definitely want to meet him while you're here. And I know we have more questions.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Before I go, I just want to remind everybody that we have our first, I guess, industry call, demo call, the Western Growers Association. That's on February 9, and we've got 6 companies in that because they want to limit it to an hour, 10 minutes each. And some of you here are on that call. The ones on that call, the ones that are not, we'll get you in the next one. So that's coming up. January 27, we have an event that I hope you can all make it to in Woodside at Startup Basics. Gary Jenks and I will be giving presentations. And that's actually at the One Traction Accelerator. It's at a mansion in Woodside. So you should go just to see the mansion. And then on February 3rd, our next event, and this is all on our website on the RoyseLawIncorporator.com/events. You can find these. February 3rd is Investing in Ag Tech, and that's a panel of VCs. Paul Matucci from U.S. Venture Partners, Spencer Mon from Finister Ventures, and Hitesh Shah, who was the CFO at Solum. So that'll be a really good panel. Oh, and Rob LeClaire from Ag Funder. So hope you guys can all make it. And why don't you, if you
I will. These are really easy. I'll quickly go through the questions and reply to them. So here's the question. It is difficult to fit all the info into a 5 to 10 minute pitch. How many meetings should it take to give the full picture? What is an estimate of each follow-up meeting's duration? For example, 10-minute pitch, 1-hour meeting. All right, just to answer that question, to get to that meeting, if it's a venture capitalist, that's your first chance and possibly your last chance. So there aren't any other chances. You can either shoot yourself in the foot on that time and then you're done. So be careful. When you get invited to venture capitalists to go and talk to them and you don't do well in the first meeting, you'll never get invited back. So just be very polite and talk to you. So when you're looking at, how much information to give in that 5 to 10 minutes, it's really not about information. It's about engaging them. It's about getting their attention and wanting them to bring you back and talk to you again. Next question, how many lines, text per slide, and font size? The bigger, the better. The less, the better. Do not put lots of text where I can't read it. If I have to start getting glasses, you have to think of the average age of an investor tends to be much older. They've got glasses. Big font is the best thing. How many pages in a business plan? Maybe I wasn't clear, but 10. And each one of those line items that I introduce is basically one slide, no more than 10 slides. For businesses who don't have an experienced and qualified executive team, how would you address this, or how have you seen businesses overcome this? This is actually one of the points that you put a hole in. If you're the technologist who's built all of this, just show me how you're going to bring a CEO into this picture, or maybe you need help in that. But you've got a great technology. But even the people that are with you right now, hopefully they're experienced in a way where you guys work well together and you can show that, because it's always easier to bring people in and to integrate them into a culture. So there are no limitations on that. If you don't have executive team on you, you know what? It's about building a company culture. Do we need to discuss all the company proprietary information at VC's request? Will there be NDA signed beforehand? Any suggestion on what we should disclose? Not a single VC will sign an NDA. They never sign NDAs. You should not disclose any proprietary information. This should all be very high-level information. Again, maybe I didn't emphasize this enough, but this is a marketing document. You're about to basically just sell your company. It's as though you're going to a customer and trying to sell this. It's no different than a VC. So do not disclose a lot of information. Any other? I think that's it. What was it? I think that's it for the question. Yeah, so we're done. I'm going to do a little bit of my promo. I don't know exactly where, what technology plays all of you are doing, but one of the things that we're doing today as part of running data centers, we have hosted services. So if you guys need low-cost hosted services where you need help on that side of it, please don't hesitate to contact me. This is part of helping companies. If you need access to investors, send me your pitches, because this is what I do. So I'd be happy to see any of your pitches and give you guidelines. If you send me a pitch, like I said, what I do is I spend a minute flipping through it. If I see that you need major help, I'll be happy to work with you guys to help you adjust that. I'll give you some free time to a limited extent, but if you're really way off, then we start charging, and I'm okay. So if you want, some feedback, for me again, what I'm looking for is, like I said, I source deals for investors, and if you want to, please do not hesitate to send me your business plan. Oh, here's one. Do you use ratio books? I don't know what that is. What are ratio books? Use of props. If you're going to use props, I have seen many people come to pitches and the first thing they do is they stand there and they show a video. If that video is really exciting, go for it. But you know what? You just shot yourself in the foot because you're not running the company. It's the video that's running the company. They want to see who is behind the scenes. So be careful with props. If you're going to bring a sample of your product and you want to show them how that works, that's a great prop. But also save it for the end. I mean, you could have it on the table to get them curious, but be careful when you have it on the table because they'll start playing with it and they won't listen to what you say. So props can be...
Figured it all out now.
Yeah.
And all the answers, man.
Well, I will tell you one thing about, in general, public speaking. Some people are very good with humor. So if you could go into a meeting and get an audience to laugh, you got their attention. But sometimes you think you're good with humor, you go out there and you're laughing at your own joke. You just shot yourself in the foot again for stupidity because, it's also about public speaking. This is marketing. There are industry ratios that demonstrate typical industry financial ratios. Oh, you know what? Anything that you're building to show a market opportunity for you, whatever it is, if it's ratios, because I don't know what business, Marshall, this is the one who's writing it, I don't know what business you're in. Again, it's about putting materials together that validates what you're doing, that when any investor goes in and tries to figure out what this is, it's all relevant information and it's up to date and it's something that's relevant to your business. So I don't really know what you mean by ratios, because I know you have...
Well, in any industry, there are common ratios, whatever it may be in the operation of the company. If your pitch is outside of those common ratios and someone in that meeting understands the industry that you're in, they'll spot that and they'll just kick you out. So ratios are really an opportunity to screw up. If your financials don't reflect the common ratios in the industry, you better have a really good explanation of why.
Thank you. Okay, so if that's, then you just answered this question, yeah. When educating investors about your market industry, let's assume they know nothing about it. What are the key metrics or data that they want to know about? Yes, you are pitching the wrong person. If you really have to sit there and educate, if you already see that they're puzzled about what you're doing, you are talking to the wrong person. You basically wasted your time. It's very important to understand your audience. So whoever you have a meeting with, if they set up a meeting for you, there was something about your product or idea, your company that engaged them, you always will have to educate anyone that you speak to. But if they're completely lost, it's the wrong audience for you. You're wasting your time. Can you talk about something that, oh no, that's it. Any more questions out there? This is hard because you can't hear anything. I don't see any more questions. So again, my contact information is on the screen. Again, do not hesitate to send me your pitch. Like I said, I know a lot of investors that are probably interested in this industry because it is a growing industry. If you're doing anything with cloud services or hosted services that you need, please also contact me. We also, like I said, we run an accelerator program in addition to what Roger is doing, specifically for companies. So if you need one-on-one attention or if you need something, again, also connecting to customers and partners. Again, I don't know what all of you are doing, but we work with some of the large companies like IBM. IBM is very much focused on this industry, and every year they host a competition to facilitate investments in these companies. So if you want to get into the IBM, look at the IBM startup, and you'll find that they have a lot of programs around this industry. Again, I don't know specifically what all of you guys are doing. Do you want to pitch in slide with notes format? You could pitch in anything you want as long as it works when you get there. There are no limitations. Everybody's used to PowerPoint, but you know what? It's not the only means. It's really about marketing. It's about selling your idea. I mean, when I email the pitch to you, oh, let's put it this way. It should be standard format so I could open it. Because if I can't open it, you already shot yourself in the foot too. So it's not only me, but if you're sending it to other ones. So make sure it is within, if it's a PDF, something that's to be able to read it. Because I don't know what it means in notes format.
Notes attached to the slides to explain the slides, probably.
That I don't need. Every slide should be self-explanatory. That's another thing I should mention. It should, you should be able to read it and quickly understand what it's about. So, yeah, that's it. All right, well, thank you, everyone. And again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me.